Arthur Schopenhauer never shied away from controversy, and his writings on women remain some of the most provocative in philosophy. He stripped away the romantic layers society drapes over femininity and exposed what he believed to be the raw instincts and truths of female nature. To many, his views feel brutal, even insulting, but they force us to confront uncomfortable realities that people rarely dare to say out loud. In this video, we're diving into the harsh truths Schopenhauer spoke about women: beauty as illusion, relationships as power struggles, and attraction as nature's trick. His words are not easy to hear, but they challenge us to look deeper into the dynamics between men and women, beyond the surface of romance and idealism. But let me ask you something. Do you think society really tells us the truth about relationships? Or are we fed comforting lies to keep the peace? Share your thoughts in the comments, because this is exactly the kind of question Schopenhauer would want us to wrestle with. Stay with me as we uncover what Schopenhauer believed were the unspoken truths about women. Whether you agree or strongly disagree, these ideas will push you to think critically about love, desire, and the hidden motives driving human behavior. 1. Beauty as nature's illusion. Why Schopenhauer saw it as deceptive. Schopenhauer believed that one of the greatest tricks of nature lies in the illusion of beauty. To him, beauty in women was not a sign of virtue, wisdom, or lasting value. It was a temporary disguise created by nature to attract men for the purpose of reproduction. He argued that men fall into this trap by mistaking attraction for something noble when in reality they are being guided by biology rather than reason. This, in his view, is why men often idealize women at first, only to later feel deceived when beauty fades. From his perspective, beauty functions as bait. A young woman's charm, her features, her glow, all of these, he claimed, are tools that nature uses to ensure men are drawn in. But this attraction blinds men. Instead of recognizing beauty as fleeting, they interpret it as proof of deeper qualities like character or moral worth. Schopenhauer saw this as one of the greatest deceptions of human life: the confusion of surface appearance with inner truth. Consider how societies across time have elevated female beauty to the highest pedestal, in art, literature, and even in the ways men define love. For Schopenhauer, this obsession showed just how powerful nature's illusion really is. Men devote wealth, time, and energy chasing beauty, only to discover later that it cannot last, and that the passion built on it often crumbles just as quickly. Yet his critique wasn't just aimed at women. It was aimed at men's blindness. He accused men of allowing themselves to be deceived, of surrendering reason for a fleeting pleasure. In this sense, the illusion of beauty was less a condemnation of women and more an exposure of how nature manipulates both sexes. Women embody the illusion, but men willingly fall into it. The question Schopenhauer leaves us with is stark. If beauty is an illusion, should we continue to treat it as the highest standard of value, or should we learn to see past it? For him, the answer was clear: those who cling to beauty as truth will always find themselves disillusioned. ChatGPT. 2. Why he believed women live for the present, not the future. Schopenhauer argued that women are far more rooted in the present moment than men. In his philosophy, men often think in terms of the future, ambition, legacy, and long-term plans, while women, he believed, are guided by immediate needs, survival, and practicality. To him, this wasn't accidental but a function of nature. Women were designed to focus on what is necessary right now rather than what might come decades later. He often linked this trait to motherhood. A woman caring for her child cannot afford to think abstractly about distant ambitions. She must focus on feeding, protecting, and nurturing in the present. For Schopenhauer, this grounding in immediate reality made women pragmatic, but also, in his eyes, limited in foresight. He saw this as why women were less interested in philosophy, politics, or building long-term institutions, because their instincts tied them to the here and now. Take the example of choosing a partner. Schopenhauer would argue that a man might marry for ideals, dreams of family legacy, or even passion tied to a vision of the future. A woman, however, is more likely to focus on immediate qualities, stability, safety, or whether he can provide here and now. In his view, this was not manipulation, but simply nature's design shaping female psychology. Of course, this perspective is deeply controversial today, and modern evidence shows women are just as capable of long-term strategic thinking as men. But Schopenhauer's point wasn't about fairness. It was about instinct. He believed women were less bound to lofty ideals because they had the practical role of anchoring life in daily necessities. Where men could lose themselves in abstract visions, women, he claimed, stayed closer to reality. This raises a question worth reflecting on. Is living for the present a weakness, as Schopenhauer suggested, or could it actually be a hidden strength? Being rooted in the now can make a person more resilient, adaptable, and less consumed by distant anxieties. Schopenhauer may have dismissed it as limitation, but perhaps it reveals a form of balance the world needs. 3. Love or power, the hidden dynamics in relationships. Schopenhauer believed that relationships between men and women are not governed by romance or pure affection, but by power dynamics hidden beneath the surface. He argued that what we often call love is in truth a negotiation of control. Men pursuing women under the spell of desire, and women using that desire to secure stability, resources, and security. In his view, affection is rarely the foundation. Instinct and power are. He often described men as prisoners of their own passion. According to him, men idealize women, placing them on a pedestal, and in doing so, surrender reason. Women, on the other hand, recognize the leverage this creates. They may not hold physical or political strength, but through attraction and reproduction, they wield quiet but potent influence over men's choices. To Schopenhauer, this was nature's design at work. Men controlled by desire, women empowered by it. History offers countless examples that fit his claim. Kings who risked empires for the sake of a woman. Leaders who made reckless decisions under the pull of passion. Schopenhauer would point to these as proof that relationships are not balanced but shaped by hidden power. Men thought they were in control, but in truth they often bent to the invisible authority of women's influence. This view strips away the idealism of love stories and exposes relationships as constant negotiations. Men seek freedom while women seek security. Men chase beauty while women demand provision. What society dresses up as romance, Schopenhauer recast as survival and struggle. It's an unsettling perspective, but one that forces us to ask whether our own relationships are truly equal, or still shaped by these ancient instincts. For him, the truth about love was simple. It is nature's mask for power. What we call affection and harmony may only be the surface of a deeper, more primal contest between men and women, one that neither side can ever fully escape. 4. Female self-interest and the survival instinct. Schopenhauer believed that at the heart of female nature lies self-interest guided by survival. To him, women were not driven by lofty ideals like honor, philosophy, or truth. Instead, their instincts pushed them toward choices that secured safety and stability. He didn't frame this as evil, but as natural, an evolutionary necessity that ensures both their survival and the survival of their children. Marriage, in his eyes, revealed this most clearly. While men might idealize romance or chase passion, women approached it with calculation. The question was never just, do I love him? but can he provide? Can he protect? To Schopenhauer, women's decisions were rooted in what would guarantee security here and now. For example, a woman choosing a wealthy but uninspiring husband over a poor but passionate man in his philosophy was simply following nature's law of self-preservation. This interpretation wasn't just about individual choices. He saw it as a universal pattern. Across cultures and history, women often aligned themselves with power and stability. Schopenhauer argued that this showed the depth of the survival instinct, overshadowing ideals of selfless love or abstract loyalty. Where men could be reckless for passion, women, he insisted, were guided by practical necessity. Of course, this paints women as calculating, which is why his writings are often seen as harsh. But Schopenhauer didn't mean it as a personal insult. Rather, he saw both men and women as trapped in nature's web. Men pursued beauty and youth for instinctual reasons, while women sought provision and strength. Neither side in his philosophy was acting out of pure freedom. They were simply obeying the silent commands of nature. The question his argument raises is whether self-interest truly diminishes love, or whether it reveals the deeper foundation of human relationships. If survival instincts are always at play, then perhaps what we call romance is built not on ideals but on the practical needs of human life. 5. Desire, dependence, and the control men surrender. Schopenhauer often emphasized that men, despite their physical strength and social dominance, become weak in the face of desire. He argued that women hold a unique kind of power, not through force or intellect, but through the ability to inspire longing. Men, blinded by attraction, frequently surrender control, making sacrifices, bending their will, and even jeopardizing their ambitions just to secure a woman's affection. He described this as one of nature's cruelest tricks. Men may believe they are pursuing love out of choice, but in reality they are driven by instinct. A man might devote his wealth, compromise his freedom, or reshape his future to gain or keep a woman's attention. Schopenhauer saw this dependence as proof that desire is not liberating, but enslaving. In his words, men who think they are in control of relationships are often the ones most controlled by them. History once again provides vivid examples. Powerful rulers, kings, and even philosophers were known to make reckless decisions under the pull of passion. Schopenhauer would point to these stories as timeless evidence of how desire strips men of reason. The greater the longing, the greater the surrender, until even the strongest men bow to impulses they cannot master. Yet, this wasn't just criticism of women. It was also a critique of men's blindness. He believed men deceived themselves, dressing up desire as true love or noble devotion, when in fact they are simply yielding to biological compulsion. Women, understanding this dynamic, learn how to wield their influence, sometimes consciously, sometimes simply through instinct. For Schopenhauer, the lesson was clear. Desire is not freedom, but dependence. Men who fail to recognize this risk losing control over their own lives, mistaking instinct for choice. The power women hold, therefore, lies not in open domination, but in the subtle control they gain whenever men let passion rule over reason. 6. Can love ever escape nature's battle between men and women? For Schopenhauer, love was not the poetic, elevated force we often imagine. It was simply nature's disguise for an endless battle between men and women. He believed both sexes were trapped in roles they could not escape. Men enslaved by desire, women guided by survival and self-interest. What we call romance, he argued, is nothing more than biology's mask for reproduction and control. The real question, then, is whether love can ever transcend these instincts. He saw relationships as a constant negotiation. Men pursue freedom, women seek security, men chase beauty, women demand stability. On the surface, It looks like affection, but beneath it, Schopenhauer claimed, is a struggle for dominance and survival. Love, in his eyes, was not about unity but about conflict, two opposing forces locked together by nature's command. Yet his philosophy also leaves room for reflection. If love is merely instinct, why do people sacrifice for it, write poetry about it, or even die for it? Perhaps Schopenhauer would argue that these expressions are just further tricks of nature, ways to glorify what is essentially biological compulsion. But for us, the question is whether love can evolve into something greater than instinct, something consciously chosen rather than unconsciously driven. Modern thinkers might counter Schopenhauer by pointing out examples of deep partnerships built on respect, mutual growth, and shared vision. These relationships suggest that while instincts may drive the foundation, human reason and choice can elevate love beyond mere survival. But Schopenhauer's warning remains. If we ignore the instincts underneath, we risk being controlled by them without even realizing it. So, can love escape nature's battle? Schopenhauer would say no. It will always be bound to biology and conflict. But perhaps the challenge for us today is to prove him wrong, to recognize those instincts while striving to build relationships based not only on need and desire, but on conscious, chosen connection. Schopenhauer's words about women are undeniably harsh. He called beauty an illusion, love a disguise for instincts, and relationships a battlefield of power and self-interest. Whether we agree or reject his conclusions, his philosophy forces us to strip away comforting narratives and confront the raw, sometimes unsettling motives behind human behavior. But perhaps that's the value in his perspective. Not that it gives us pleasant answers, but that it challenges us to ask deeper questions. Are we truly free in love, or are we still bound by the instincts nature has written into us? Do our relationships rest on equality and choice, or are they still in part shaped by the timeless struggle for control? If you've stayed with me until the end, write seductive wisdom in the comments to show you're part of this deeper reflection. And let me know, do you think Schopenhauer revealed the truth about love and women? Or was he too cynical to see the higher possibilities of human connection?